So anyhow, I want to talk about one of the greatest music albums of all time, and of course, I'm talking about Pink Floyd's "The Wall," man. I mean, "The Wall." Uh, I really love "The Wall," man. It's one of those albums that I actually watched the Wall the live DVD the movie the Wall the movie, and it's a powerful animated music album, music film, just really great. It just really draws you in. And of course, the highlight of The Wall for me, and I think for a lot of people, the highlight of the album is of course Comfortably Numb, right? The song Comfortably Numb. Definitely one of the greatest rock songs, one of the greatest rock ballads of all time. Also, incidentally, happens to have one of the greatest guitar solos of all time. And of course, that's the David Gilmour solo on Comfortably Numb, man. Like, when you're listening to The Wall, and it's a double CD album. It's got like CD one and it's got CD two. And so you kind of go through the first CD, and it's great. It's amazing. Um, but in CD one, a lot happens that gets you all stirred up, but nothing happens that delivers the knockout blow to you, right? Like it's kind of like going into a movie theater and seeing a good action flick, right? Um, but but nobody gets killed. Nobody very important gets killed. Like the hero doesn't get killed, and the villain doesn't get killed. So at the end of CD one, it kind of leaves you in this suspenseful in between state, and I guess that's exactly what Pink Floyd and the producers and um, the songwriters wanted to do, was like get you into CD two. And but here's the thing: is that in CD one they kind of introduce some tie downs, some tie ins. Like you already have the story of the military guy, a guy enlisting in the military and going off to fight in the war. And I guess some of the themes, it's a concept album, right? So some of the themes could be linked to. It's kind of like the story of a guy that goes off to fight the war, and I guess it's like World War II, and he's probably like a Brit soldier fighting against Nazi Germany or something like that. But it really could be any war. It really could be any historical epoch. It doesn't have to be just World War II. And this war doesn't even have to be a military war. It could be any kind of war, like a mental war, especially when you listen to what goes on in the highlight of the album. As I was saying, the song Comfortably Numb. It's actually about a rock star and what he is, what he's doing as he's going to play on stage, and he's just kind of getting disconnected from the world and kind of getting disconnected from reality as a rock star living in this kind of artificial world where he's just comfortably numb and he's not really fully living anymore. He can barely hear the outside world anymore. It's just kind of coming through in waves, and it's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you get those injections that kind of make you space out, and then they maybe do an operation or something like that. And so that's really kind of so in that sense, in that instance, in that particular song, the war is, I mean, the war is not actually like a military war necessarily. It could be just a mental war where he's fighting with himself, you're fighting with yourself, you're trying to get a grip on reality, and it's not clear always whether you can survive. Like some of the most dangerous wars we go through in life are not military wars. Like only certain of us ever get to go through a military war in life. Like it doesn't happen to everybody. Of course, it happens to a lot of people, a lot of nations, but it's not every single one of us. But we all have to fight a war of one kind or another in life. You know, it might be getting through a really tough problem, right? It might be going through a really hard time. It might be surviving a nasty incident, you know, a bad accident, um, you know, things like that. It might be surviving some kind of conflict, some kind of, in the office or on the streets, or different kinds of places. You can take it any kind of place where there's gonna be conflict, multiple entities involved. And so, in that sense, the album is a really great metaphor for everyday situations, everyday struggles, everyday wars, and how over time we tend to kind of build up these walls, right? Kind of like how in in World War II, you might have seen the idea of kind of like building a wall that the other guys, supposedly the bad guys, can't get through to us. So we build up this wall to keep them out. And that's kind of like in life. Sometimes, people put up these walls. It might be a psychological wall to try to protect themselves. And sometimes that wall can become like a prison, right? That kind of holds you captive. And those kinds of themes are explored in the album, and that's part of what makes it such a great album. But one of the tricks that Pink Floyd actually used in that album is that they got this running motif of another brick in the wall, and it's got like another brick in the wall, part one. So that's a certain song, and then it's got part two, and I think it's got part three. And I think by the time you get to like part three, that's kind of when the great big comfortably numb highlight of the album is gonna come into play. And by the time you hear it for the third time, always played a little bit different throughout the two albums. I mean, throughout the two CDs. So by the time you hear it for the third time, you kind of know like this is serious now. Something is coming. So there's really good scripting. It's almost like watching a movie. And as I said, I actually happened to watch the War movie, which was really well done, really well made. And so this actually goes into more than just songwriting. The actual and it's a concept album, right? So the idea behind the concept album is to do music in a way where it tells a story. It's almost like a movie, but hopefully even more than a movie, because we've got the power of music. We can really communicate in a way that can be really, really, really moving and really emotionally evocative for people. And now, one of my own favorite songs from The Wall, absolutely one of my all-time favorite songs, was actually Thin Ice. When I heard Thin Ice, I think the first time, and then heard it again, for some reason it just became one of my favorite songs, because Thin Ice is an amazing, well-written song from a lyrical songwriting point of view. Just the lyrics of the of the song, and it's a really short song, really simple. It's not like it's this crazy song with an amazing solo, like some shred guitar, the kind of stuff that I like. It's none of that. It's really simple musically, conceptually, and even in terms of time. As I said, it's a really short song, but just the lyrics, it's like if you should go skating on the um, mountain of life or something like that, don't be surprised when a creek appears. Uh, and then it says some other stuff, and then it says, and you go sinking as you crawl into the thin ice. It's kind of like you know, a crack appears as you are skating, and before you know it, you're going down and you're sinking into the into the thin ice. And it's kind of like this warning story of what can happen when you're out skating, right? If there's thin ice, you can be skating. One moment you're skating okay, and then because you stepped on the thin ice, the next moment you're literally sinking. You're literally fighting for your life, and this is sub-zero conditions. You don't have long to live down there, and because of all this thin ice around, it might be hard for you to get out again. And if you're out there alone, there might be nobody to help you. Nobody might even see and spot. So this is a very apt song for war, because in war, when you're fighting, if you should go away from your comrades or be cut off for some reason, when something like this happens, like the enemy suddenly throws an ambush around you, now you're all alone, so like no one could. So one moment you're out scouting a position with your binoculars, you're kind of hoping to bring intel back, and the next moment there's gunfire, enemy fire all around you. So it really is an apt metaphor. This is like the thin ice metaphor, because really one moment you're on your mission doing your thing, and the next things just suddenly change. You're sinking into the thin ice, and that kind of applies. Like I said, this is not just about physical war. It applies to all kinds of wars that we have to fight in life. And so, if you haven't ever listened to the war, you should really do yourself a favor, all right, and actually just go check out Pink Floyd's The Wall. It's really one of the greatest music albums of all time. I think you will love it.